What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the Mac Sports Connection podcast, where Alex hosts all things Mac, all things football, all things sports, right here, Mac Sports Connection, baby. The Mid-American Conference best, bringing it only the great Mac to everyone.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Mac Sports Connection podcast. I'm your host, Alex the Captain. Thank you so much for joining me this week. We are officially just over 2 months away from the start of the college football season, and what better time than to give our college previews, talk about the season, talk about the players, talk about these great teams in the Mid-American Conference who, well, they're all competing for one thing, a MAC championship. I figured I'd break it down into pods this year, similar to how the MAC schedule has shifted and how the divisions are no longer a thing. A big shout out to our last divisional champions, the Toledo Rockets of the West, the Miami Redhawks of the East, and now we break into 4 3-team pods for the 2024 season and beyond. I imagine those pods will get, of course, shifted when we bring UMass in next season. However, we have a beautifully aligned 12-team, 4 pods, 3 teams a pod set up here moving forward for the Mid-American Conference. And I figured why not start with the pod of my alma mater, the University of Toledo. So we'll start with, I will label them as Pod 1. And this is going to be a preview episode, mostly actually focusing on the Bowling Green Falcons today. And we'll be bringing you all that content just over the next couple of weeks, probably a couple episodes a week through MAC Media Day here towards the end of July, middle end of July, and then, of course, wrapping up August with more previews, more information about the season, about the teams, whatever it may be. I'm really, really, really excited about this football season. But I want to get to this, and I want to start with, again, the Bowling Green Falcons, who last year went 7-6, a 30-24 loss to Minnesota in the Quick Lane Bowl to cap their season. They finished 5-3 in Mid-American Conference play a year ago. Losses to Ohio, Miami, and Toledo, 2 of those teams, of course, battling in the MAC championship just last season. There's plenty to talk about. This is a Bowling Green team that personally I'm very excited to see perform. They got a couple key transfer players in, and I think that there's a big opportunity for these guys to be big contributors, especially on the offensive side. They bring in Donovan Stevens, a linebacker from Oklahoma State. Of course, that's on the defensive side, coming in as a junior, so a couple years of eligibility. Todd Bumpus, the cornerback from Cincinnati, he's coming in as a senior. And what's interesting about this is he was also a Toledo St. Francis standout. He big part of that St. Francis team for many years, and he's coming back to his home area, just a few miles south of his hometown of Toledo, Ohio. RJ Garcia II, a wide receiver from Kansas State, coming in as a junior. And then, of course, Malcolm Johnson, the wide receiver from Auburn, coming in as a senior. Of course, there are other transfer players. These are just the ones that I feel are going to have the greatest impact in terms of this upcoming season, what they're going to be able to bring to the table. Not to discredit any of these other transfers. The Bowling Green did a phenomenal job filling key areas on the transfer, really in the transfer portal for this program. But these are the ones who I feel are going to have the greatest impact early on in their time with the Falcons. Of course, we have our key departures. We got Teron Keith. He transferred out, one of the 2-headed monsters out of the backfield for these Falcons. Odio Hilaire is graduating and trying to get latched on with an NFL team. Of course, good luck to him. Always a thrill to watch him play and suit up for the Falcons, score touchdowns, and bring smiles to the face of the Falcon faithful. Of course, Abdul Ibrahim, he transferred out. Deshaun Jones also transferring out. Devon Ferguson graduating. Cassius Howell, this one I find interesting. He is transferring out. And I don't have the list in front of me. I accidentally closed out of it, but I believe he transferred out to Texas A&M, who Bowling Green will be playing this year. We'll be getting to that schedule here shortly. And then really, I think arguably the biggest loss is Darren Anders graduating here in this offseason. Darren Anders, an unbelievable rock on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, we've seen Bowling Green really step up and have a nice defense the last couple years. Offense has been kind of piecing it together, figuring it out, but it's been the defense that's kept them in games. It kept them in the game against Michigan last year for quite a while. They played a lot of their opponents really, really tough. Obviously, huge for them against Georgia Tech, part of the Bowling Green winning 38-28 down there in Georgia. So this is a unit that they're consistently strong for the Falcons, and frankly, I don't see that really changing this year. You look at who they're kind of returning. They've got a lot of pieces coming back. Linebacker Joseph Sipp, who, by the way, was second on the team in tackles and will probably be the leader of the unit this year. But you also returned Demetrius Hardiman, who last year he did get hurt. I believe it was in the Michigan game. He actually had to miss the entire season after that, but he'll be back this year. Jordan Oladukin, he's going to be back. He had 4 interceptions a year ago. And then interesting key transfer in from Northern Illinois, you've got C.J. Brown. Last year, 2 years ago, he was a second-team All-MAC player, and 3 years ago, he's a first-team All-MAC player. So this is a guy who can play. He understands how to play defense, especially in this league. They're bringing all of their defensive linemen back. Dontrez Brown led the entire group. He had 2 fumble recoveries. So this is an experienced defense. They finished 4th in the conference a year ago in yards per game. They also finished 1st in the nation in turnovers. Coach Leffler has done a phenomenal job with this defense, with his coaching staff. Of course, when you talk about coaching staff, you've got Steve Morrison, Sammy Lonenson, and they're just going to do a phenomenal job once again. I'm really looking forward to what this defense can do. But let's look at this offense. A lot of questions on offense. This is an offense who it looks like they returned their offensive line, which is unbelievably critical, especially in MAC play. You want to have an offensive line that's really gelling. And of course, they're returning Harold Fannin, Connor Bazelak, and then Terrion Stewart. Of course, these guys all big key contributors. But I think the players I have circled, again, Malcolm Johnson, the transfer and from Auburn, and then R.J. Garcia, the transfer from Kansas State. For me, when you look at this team, these are 2 guys who I think can have an immediate impact. You both come from Power 4 programs. Both spent time in great systems. Of course, Kansas State playing in the Pop-Tart Bowl this last year against NC State, a great opportunity for them. And obviously, I mean, come on, let's be honest. That Pop-Tart Bowl was a blast to watch. Even if you didn't watch the game, the mascot was pretty awesome. But I really think that these guys, I mean, they're big guys too. Malcolm Johnson is 6'1". R.J. Garcia, I believe, is also 6'1". And I think finally Bowling Green's going to have some real height at wide receiver. And they've got a lot of depth too. I mean, yes, you lose Odio Hilaire, who I think really is an NFL talent. You know, people can agree or disagree with me here, but I truly believe he is an NFL talent, and I fully expect that he's going to get latched on with the team at some point. But I think when you look at what Bowling Green is bringing in, on top of what they already return offensively, this is going to be a really solid football team. Connor Bazelak is now in I think it's his 6th season playing college football. Of course, everybody knows he came in from Indiana and then Missouri as well. And he's finally going to have another year in this Bowling Green program. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw him as a contender for Player of the Year. There's an opportunity for him to really, really break out. This offense was not good last year. You know, we talked about how good the defense was offensively. Bowling Green was not impressive. I believe they sat in the bottom 1/3. I believe almost even bottom 1/4 of the country. Yeah, 108 in the country. So a lot to kind of hope for this year. You almost really can't get any worse, but you can definitely improve, and I think they will. Under Connor Bazelak, again, under center for the 2nd year in a row, I think we've seen Bowling Green work on this rebuild since 2019 when Coach Loeffler took over the program. I think if you're a Bowling Green fan, or if you're really a fan of the MAC and you paid attention, we saw the Bowling Green turnaround happen that fall. We saw them come in. They were, I believe, 21-point dogs to Toledo at home. You beat Toledo at home. And then, of course, you kind of fall flat the rest of the year. Next 2 seasons roll around. But you start to see improvement. Coach Loeffler's done a phenomenal job rebuilding this program from the Mike Jinks era. I know the dark days of Bowling Green football there, so I apologize to the Falcon faithful listening. But you guys have somebody pretty special in Coach Loeffler. This is a coach who understands the game, understands how it needs to be coached, how it needs to be played. And yeah, the rebuild may not be going the way you want it. You're not competing for MAC championships right away. I'm sure Coach Loeffler will tell you, keep giving it time. We're working on it. We're working through it. And they're building towards a championship. I think in terms of players to watch, breakout players, of course, Terrion Stewart was the leading rusher for the Falcons. When I pull up his stats, he was averaging 6.1 yards a game last year. And I think it was 85.1 yards per game before being lost. I mean, the injury bug plagued these Falcons. And I really, really expect him to kind of be the anchor of this team. Of course, you get, like I said, Connor Bazelak back. But if Bowling Green's going to win, you got to win on the ground. And I think Terrion Stewart is going to be such a critical component of that. And I really, really think that this could be his big year, his offensive player of the year. That this is that moment for him. So I really think if Bowling Green, who again, they returned 4 of their 5 offensive linemen, including Alex Wolschlager. He's the former 3rd-team All-MAC player from last season. I really like what this Bowling Green team can do and what they bring to the table. Of course, obviously, they're going to be dealing with depth. I think that's going to be the big thing. I think there's the coaching staff has done a nice job of adding depth to this program. I think there's a lot of players who have an opportunity to be contenders for end-of-the-year player awards, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see. You've got a veteran defense. You've got an inexperienced offense, but you have anchors and key pieces such as Harold Fannin, your leading receiver from a year ago at tight end. You've got 80% of your offensive line from a year ago back. Your starting quarterback is also returning, and your starting running back, or your leading rusher, I guess, also returning. For me, that spells a recipe for success. I am looking at this schedule. So, of course, last year, their schedule was a little bit interesting. They played at Liberty, hosted Eastern Illinois, played at Michigan, and then they played at Georgia Tech, the one where they won 38-27. Of course, they won, 5 out of their last 6? 4 out of their last 6, including the bowl game. And I gotta tell you, I'm very, very high on this Bowling Green team. Of course, 7-6 last year, 5-3 in the Mid-American Conference. Let's just look at this schedule. Obviously everybody knows Scott Loeffler. In 5 years, he is 20-35. But I hate to always use record as an indicator of what a coach has done. Mike Jinks did not do wonders for this Bowling Green program. I know some people will look at some of the things Mike Jinks did very fondly. When you actually do a deep dive, you see that Mike Jinks did not leave this program in a good spot when he was out. Scott Loeffler had to come in and completely rebuild, and deserves all the credit in the world. So, when people see 20-35, please don't use that as the indicator. Look at what was happening before. Look at what happened right before he took over. That'll give you a better picture. I think really it's clear the administration seems to think that he's on the right path. Every year, it's been an improved win total. Every single year. So, Coach Loeffler's right there. These Falcons, right there. They're improving. They're getting Power 5 wins now. They're doing things that they haven't done in a while, and I want to be clear, don't use record as an indicator of success. Don't use it as the only indicator of success. Now, obviously, an opportunity to compete for a MAC championship, but you've got in your pod MAC runner-up last year, Toledo, and then, of course, Northern Illinois, who, let's just be honest, historically a good program. Hasn't been great as of late. They did win their bowl game this year, so they did finish 7-6. But in the last 2-3 years, they've not been a stellar program. 2021 was their last MAC championship appearance, and since then they've kind of fallen off. Of course, injuries, ball not bouncing the right way, whatever it may be. But I expect that Northern Illinois is going to be back close to where they need to be. Looking at the schedule for the Falcons, we've got August 29th. They are hosting Fordham. I'm just going to go down and I'm going to give my win-loss prediction as I go. That's a win at home. We saw Fordham beat Buffalo last year at UB Stadium. I think when we get to our Buffalo preview, we'll talk about that a little bit more. I don't think that's going to be the case here for Bowling Green. I think they win their home opener against Fordham before hitting the road. The next 2 games are on the road. You travel to Penn State, so Bowling Green 1-0 with a win over Fordham. At Penn State, James Franklin has done a nice job. I think Penn State probably wins this one. I think Bowling Green has a good defense, and they give Penn State a defensive run for their money. I just think Penn State at home in Happy Valley, a little too strong for the Falcons. So Falcons are going to drop to 1-1. Up next, the Falcons take on Texas A&M down, in Texas. This one's an interesting one. So this A&M team last year, they went 7-6, 4-4 in the SEC. Jimbo Fisher was fired after 10 games into the season. Elijah Robinson took over as the interim. They lost their last 2 games of the year that year. This to LSU and then of course to Oklahoma State. But this is an interesting team. Mike Elko coming in as the head coach this year. And he was at Duke last year. He was the defensive coordinator for Texas A&M just a couple years ago. And you guys know he was at Bowling Green. He was the defensive coordinator, linebackers coach from 2009 to 2013. So he's got some MAC ties. This is he's going to be not necessarily familiar with Coach Leffler, but he's going to be familiar with Bowling Green, so he understands what they do. This was a guy who worked under Dave Clawson at Clawson's many stops from Fordham, Richmond, and then Wake Forest. So I think when we get into this one's going to be a very, very interesting one. That being said, I fully expect Texas A&M is going to win this game down at Kyle Field. Now, they have an entire coaching staff. First year for everybody in this program. They've got Notre Dame, McNeese State, at Florida, and then, of course, Bowling Green to kind of really kick everything off. And I don't know. I'm looking at that schedule right now. This is tough. You get Notre Dame at 6 o'clock or at 6:30. Then McNeese State. That's fine. That's going to be a win for them. And then at Florida. So they're traveling to Florida. Then they have to come back and get ready for Bowling Green. While thinking about Arkansas the week after, you can't overlook Bowling Green. I think that's what Georgia Tech did last year. You can't overlook the Falcons. I do believe Texas A&M wins this one. But again, similar to Penn State, I think Texas A&M is going to be in for a very stingy defense out of this BG team. And so I fully expect Bowling Green to come out, compete, possibly win this game. But I do think it's going to be in favor of Texas A&M. Falcons finally return home after a 1-2 start to the season. Well, they get Old Dominion. So the Falcons, the benefit to their Texas A&M game, by the way, they get a bye week pretty early between September 7th and September 21st. Falcons get 2 weeks to prepare for Texas A&M versus just 1 week like they traditionally would. And I think that actually gives them a slight advantage. But again, Texas A&M wins it. But they return home. They get Old Dominion. We'll see which Old Dominion shows up. This is a program that has had some success recently. I like Bowling Green at home. I like them to start 2-0 at home. And yeah, the road games aren't great, but road games against Power 4 programs who are usually contenders in their conference or pretty close to the top. I'm going to go ahead and give Bowling Green the win here at home against Old Dominion. And then we finally, October 5th hits, we finally get into MAC play. Got the 4 non-con out of the way, 2-2. You go to Akron. Akron, who has been a thorn in the Falcons' side in the last couple years. Bowling Green beat them a year ago, of course, 41-14 at home. Akron, Joe Moorhead. I have been high on Joe Moorhead for the last couple years, and I know many of you know that, and many of you are aware of that. I like Bowling Green to go into Infocision Stadium and win this game. I think that Akron and what Joe Moorhead are doing, again, similar to what Scott Leffler had to do. You're turning a program around that really was scraping below the bottom of the barrel. They were scraping the ground underneath it. When you look at Akron overall, they've had rough turnover since Terry Bowden left. I like Akron. Tom Arth, great guy. I think he's still out west now as an offensive analyst for the Chargers, if I remember correctly. Was not a great head coach here, despite the success he had at the FCS and Division III level and all that. I think that we're going to see this program continue to get a little bit better. They got the win over Kent State last year. They've got a big identity crisis. We'll get into that more when I get into that pod. Falcons start 3-2 with a win at Akron, only to come home for 2 games, Northern Illinois and Kent State. I see the Falcons splitting that. I see them beating Kent State, but I see them losing to Northern Illinois. So 4-3, heading into the game at Toledo. Finally, we get Bowling Green Toledo on a Saturday once again for the first time since October 12th, 2019. Last time we saw these two teams play on a Saturday, the Falcons left victorious over their in-state rivals, over their Battle of I-75 rivals. Toledo down in Bowling Green. That was 20-7. That was the first year under Scott Loeffler. Scott Loeffler is now 2-3 against Toledo. They won that first one in his first year, gave up the next two, beat Toledo in the Glass Bowl 42-35 on November 15th, 2022, and then last year they surrendered a big lead, 32-31. Rockets storm back in the second half and complete the comeback, complete the victory, taking back the Battle of I-75 trophy. This one's going to be an incredible game. Obviously, anytime you get Bowling Green Toledo on a Saturday, especially an early October Saturday, it's October, I don't know. I'm really trying to not let my homer bias come out. Toledo's going to be having a new offensive line. Tucker Gleason has experience at quarterback under center. I think it'll be really interesting to see where these two teams are. My gut says Bowling Green has an opportunity to really come in. They're going to have one of the best defenses in the conference this year. I think Miami takes the top spot with that, but I think Bowling Green probably has the second or third best defense in the MAC this year. I'm going to go ahead and just give this to Toledo only because Toledo's at home. Again, my homer bias might sound like it's coming out. I think Toledo at home, they've done really well under Jason Candle at home in the last several years. You know, you drop a game here and there. But honestly, I think you throw everything out. We saw that last year. We saw that the year before. Bowling Green is playing Toledo tougher than they have prior to Scott Loeffler's arrival. Even when BG was winning MAC championships with regularity, they were not winning rivalry games. In fact, looking back at it, from 2010 to 2018, Toledo won all of those. And it wasn't even scores like, there was a couple scores like 28-21, 28-25. There were scores like 66-37, 52-36, 27-15, 33-14. So Toledo was winning those games by healthy margins. Scott Loeffler has helped them understand what this rivalry means and what it looks like. And I think that's a critical part of all of this. So I got to give the nod to Toledo just for being at home. It's going to be a different atmosphere than the last time. Jason Candle is going to do a great job, I think, impressing on this team what it means to win this game at home. But honestly, to me, this one is a 50-50. I'm just giving the points to Toledo because they're at home. So moving on, of course, Bowling Green now 4-4, 2-2 in MAC play. Bowling Green goes up to Central. I think they smack Central. I just flat out. Defense is going to be coming off of that Toledo game. Bert Emanuel, it's going to be a tough outing for Central Michigan. And then at Western Michigan, Western should have a good defense this year. Offense, we'll see. I think Lance Taylor's doing a nice job up there in Kalamazoo getting things turned around. But I am expecting that Western Michigan is not going to be able to compete with the Falcons in this one. Similar to last year, a 34-10 drubbing by BG at BG. I don't think it'll be that bad, but I do think that the Falcons walk out of that one with a victory. So now 6-4. And then you travel to Muncie, Ball State, Mike New. They've got a lot of things that they got to figure out. There's so much potential with this Ball State team. There really is. I don't think that they figure it out for this Bowling Green team. Bowling Green moves to 7-4 with a win at Ball State. And then Miami, Ohio. This one's tough. I think Miami, of course, they have New Year's Six title, or they have MAC title aspirations, New Year's Six hopes and dreams. I like Miami a lot in this one, especially with Miami coming into BG. It's going to be the last game of the season prior to a potential MAC championship appearance. I don't want to just automatically write the Red Hawks in yet. But I really, really, really think Bowling Green can't hang. They'll hang for 3 quarters. Miami's defense is just, they will beat you and beat you and beat you. Miami is also bringing back Brett Gabbert, who it feels like he has played college football for 1,200 years. But they're bringing back Brett Gabbert. They're bringing back a phenomenal defense. I truly believe Miami wins this one. Falcons 8-4, 7-5. I think if you're a bettor, if you're one who places bets, it's got to be Bowling Green 7+ wins. As it sits now, Vegas odds have them at 6.5, according to FanDuel. So if you want free money, I'd take the over on the 6.5 wins. That's plus 116 right now. So you're giving yourself free money. Says under 6.5 is minus 142. Take that free money, guys. That's you can hammer that Bowling Green is going to have 7+ wins this year. That is a guarantee. Vegas is wrong on this. Bowling Green will have 7+ wins, and of course, another season of really not meeting the goals and expectations. But this is a Falcon team who's on the right track. They're going to win 6 MAC games this year. They're going to be competitive. They're really going to be good. I think that they probably finish behind Toledo in the pod. Of course, they won't win the MAC. They won't be in the MAC championship, I don't believe. But they could be as high as 8 wins, but I think their floor is absolutely 7 wins. Really, they could be as high as 9 wins if we're being real honest, because again, that Toledo game is a coin flip. But I really think their absolute floor is 7 wins. That's going to about do it for me today, folks. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Obviously, going to be doing more of these previews as we roll along. See what I did there, Falcon fans? And we're going to be bringing you more football content here in the next couple of weeks. Again, MAC Media Day coming up here in July. Great opportunity to talk with coaches, players, administrators, and more. Really looking forward to that. Going to be doing a lot more kind of mixing in and out of various things, trying to bring more content in. I'm going to be looking at bringing on a few more guests, and I'm going to be looking at another day of play. If I can make it happen, trying to make it happen with a couple other underappreciated, underrepresented programs. Of course, you guys all know football, basketball, but I want to give a little more attention to programs who don't get as much love. So if you have a program suggestion, let me know. I'll see if I can be in touch with their coaches, their administrators, and see what we can't make happen. That Miami field hockey day of play was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to trying to do another one. That's going to be it for me today, guys. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure that you guys are hitting like, share, and subscribe on all platforms. Of course, you can find me on Twitter X at the MSC Podcast, Instagram at the MSC Podcast, over there on TikTok at MSC Podcast, or at the MSC Podcast, and then of course on YouTube at MSC Podcast as well. Going to be bringing you guys a lot of content here in the next couple weeks. Like I mentioned, a lot of football previews. It's that time of year. We are gearing up for football season, waiting all week for Tuesday night, whatever it may be. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.